Hi, my name is Holly Forrest, and this is a video on spring fitness training. It is presented by the Adams County Public Library System, and it is sponsored by the Lions Club. So when we have nice, beautiful days like this, we start to think about coming off of our couches and getting back into some kind of shape. So the easiest way that most people like to start is just by simply doing a walking program. And when you're starting a walking program, the best places to walk are places like our beautiful Carroll Valley Park, such as this. It's got a nice layout. They actually have a mile mapped out that you can figure out. And also because of the surface, it's a nice soft surface to walk on, the nice stones. You don't have concrete and you don't have blacktop. So when you're starting out, it is better to walk on a softer surface like that rather than a sidewalk or blacktop. So it's good to warm up for at least 5 to 7 minutes before you start challenging yourself. But if you haven't been doing anything, even if you come out and walk 10 to 15 minutes to start, that's an excellent way to jump off your program. And you may want to think about doing two 10-minute sessions a day instead of 20 minutes all at one time. So the ultimate goal is to work up to 30 minutes of an endurance walk at one time to increase your cardiovascular fitness. And you can do that up to 5, 6 days a week. Once you get to the point where you can do a 30-minute session at one time, you don't want to just stay there and just keep walking for 30 minutes, yada, 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 on your way. You want to kind of increase your fitness level. And the best way to do that is to add some intervals to your walking. So I see a lot of people at the park, and they come out to the park and they just walk the same pace the whole time, and they say, why am I not losing weight, or why am I not getting fitter? So you do want to get to the point where you're challenging yourself a little bit, okay? So we basically have there's three different cardio heart rate training zones. And zone one is between 65 and 75% of your maximum heart rate. Your maximum heart rate is the fastest that your heart can actually beat. So zone one is 65 to 75%. Zone 2 is 75 to 85%, and zone 3 is 85 to 95% of your max heart rate. So you should eventually be trying to get into those zones. The research shows that even people that have cardiovascular disease or heart conditions can benefit from interval training. Of course, talk to your doctor about the safety of that first before you try that program by yourself. Now, we all are probably don't have heart rate monitors, so a good rule of thumb is to use something called the ratings of perceived exertion, or Berg scale. And that is a scale that goes from 6 to 20. And 6 means no effort at all, and 20 means the most maximum effort that you can put out, meaning you can't sustain that for very long at all. So zone 1 correlates with a RPE, or rating of perceived exertion, of 12 to 13. And zone 2 is 14 to 16, and zone 3 is 17 to 19. So what does that all mean? Let's put that together a little bit. So you've been walking your program, you've been building up to 30 minutes, 5 to 6 days a week without any problems. So now you want to start to add some interval training. And interval training should be done about 2 to 3 times a week. You don't want to do interval training every day, so you just want to mix that in with your program 2 to 3 times a week. So a good way to start is most of you should be getting into your zone 1, that rating of perceived exertion of 12 to 13, where you're just starting to find it difficult to talk. So that's in the somewhat hard range. And the first way to interval train is to add in a zone 2, where you're working a little bit harder for 30 seconds to 1 minute. Again, we're going to warm up for 5 to 7 minutes, and then when we first start our interval training program, we're going to walk faster than we'd like for 30 seconds to 1 minute. Then we're going to come back down into our zone 1 again for 3 to 5 minutes, and we're going to just keep repeating that pattern for the length of our workout. Okay, no more than 30 minutes though. Okay, then to make that a little bit more difficult, you're just going to decrease your rest time or your time in zone 1. So then you would, what that would look like is you would go to, again, warm up for 5 to 7 minutes. Then you would do a somewhat harder burst for 1 minute, and then you would only let yourself come down for 2 to 3 minutes before you'd challenge yourself again into that 14 to 16 range, that heart rate range of 75 to 85%. And then finally, the ultimate goal should be to get to where your rest and work intervals are 1-to-1. So you'd warm up for 5 to 7 minutes, then you would push yourself for a minute, come back down into your zone 1 for 1 minute, and then go back up to zone 2 or 3 for a minute, and so on and so forth for the length of your workout. So start slow, build a cardiovascular fitness base before you move on. So I hope that all makes sense. If you want a more structured heart rate zone, you can reach out to me, either Holly McLaughlin Forrest or Holly's Holistic Fitness online, and I can get you a more detailed description about where your heart rate should be in those zones. But I hope that makes sense. The research, again, behind interval training is really, really good, especially for metabolic training and increasing your cardiovascular burn. So when you're out here doing your 30 minutes, you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of your time and out of your fitness level. Okay, so now another mistake that I see a lot of people make is they just do cardio. They just come to the park and they walk every single day, same pace. So we already talked about that, increasing your intervals a little bit. And they never do any resistance training. Okay, resistance training is just basically taxing your muscles and making your muscles stronger and stronger. Number one, that helps your metabolism so much more. 1 pound of muscle actually burns 7 times more calories than a pound of fat. So that means if you put some muscle on, you're going to be burning more calories even when you're just sitting in your chair watching television. So we don't want to neglect that. Also, if you keep your muscles conditioned, hopefully will keep you away from an injury and away from physical therapy. So there are a few things you can do at the park with some resistance bands. We're talking more about a park workout today, so that's what we'll stick with. I think we'll do lower body first since everything's right here. I've got a tube band, and I've got a straight band. This is my straight band, and this is my tube band. And they come in different levels of resistance. So you can get them at Walmart, you can get them at Target, Marshall's. They're pretty much everywhere, but you do want to make sure that you have a variety of different bands for a different strength workout. You don't want it to be too easy. So one of the easiest exercises to do, I'm going to show you the easier one first, or the more supported one first. And everyone should be doing this one. This helps with mobility, helps us get up and down out of the chair. It's just a basic assisted squat. Now, if you have some tender knees, then sometimes a regular squat, first of all, a regular squat's difficult for people to get the form right. They don't want to stick their butt out, so they end up jutting their knees way past their toes. So it's nice to have something for assistance. So at the park here, we've got these nice benches. Now, some of the benches do come up, and I found that out the hard way. So make sure that your bench is pretty stable. And you want to put your feet nice and wide. Keep your weight in the back and sit just like this, down and up. Now, when you're starting, if you have not been squatting at all or doing any kind of weight training, you want to stay more at the top end of your range, and you don't want to go too low, or you will not be too happy the next day. But as you get more fit, then you want to drop down no lower than, you want the hip to be no lower than the knee. And you can start out with 3 sets of 10. Maybe the first time you want to just start out with 1 set, and then work your way up to 3 sets. Now, another way you could do the squat is by having, there's a tree, we'll walk over here. Just taking a nice little walk. You could use a tree. Now, this tree has some lights on it still from Christmas, but we'll just ignore that. So you could do squats just by hanging on a tree for balance doing this way. Make sure you keep your upper body upright and that you're not folded over at the waist, just like that. You can also use the different things at the pavilion there to hold on to. They've got the nice little bars there that you could hold on to, just something to stabilize yourself. So that's a good way to start without having to balance or injure your knees. Remember, you want to always keep the weight in the back, and you don't want the knees to go past the toes. Okay, another exercise, this is a little bit more advanced that you can do. You're probably going to want to come over on this side. Would be a lunge. Now, we're going to do the lunge in place. You want your feet to be like railroad tracks. So you do not want one in front of the other. So just so that you know what I look like from the front, you'd step a foot back nice and long, stay up more on the ball of your foot, and then you just drop down and up. And again, when you're first starting, you may want to stay at the top end, and then as you get more confident, you can drop down a little bit lower. Okay? And you want to make sure you do both sides, of course, and you can start with up to 5 per leg, 3 sets. Okay? Now, a progression of that, you can stay there, Colby. Colby's my cameraman today. A progression of that could be a simple walking lunge. Again, I'm keeping my feet nice and wide. From the side, it would look like this. Okay? You might get some funny looks, but you're doing a lot of good stuff for your health, so it's okay. So, another lower body exercise. We want to engage the hamstrings. The simplest way to start with the hamstrings, it's not loaded at all, is just a curl like this. You keep the foot flexed, you're flexing that muscle, and again, you would do 3 sets of 10 per side. Okay? Now, another way, some people have heard of deadlifts. You can do a band deadlift. Okay? So you put your feet like this, hold on, and you can adjust the tension by how far down. Like this is more tension down here. I'm feeling a lot more tension this way than if I were to hold it at the top of the band. That's hardly no tension at all. So you adjust your tension, and then you could do a deadlift just like so. It's a little bit different. On the deadlift, you keep your back nice and flat. You bend over like you're weeding the garden. You don't want to go too much lower than right below the kneecap. So that's another way to work the hamstrings. Okay. Another exercise. Checking my notes here. Another exercise that you can do. I'm going to show you the easy version first and then the more difficult version, and I'll show you this way. You can do it to the side. This is what it looks like from the front. You put your toe in and lift to the side, and you would do 3 sets of 10 per side. But you could face this way, toe in. That works the glute medius muscle, and that's a muscle that atrophies as we age, and it's responsible for gait stabilization. So when we walk, if we're not careful and we don't keep that glute medius nice and strong, we tend to drag the foot, tend to trip, so not a good thing. So option A for glute medius is this, just lifting to the side like this. Option B would be to get one of these nice handy dandy tube things, which I really like, and you can sit, of course, and you put it on the lower half down there, right in between the knee and the ankle, and you Need to keep your feet wide, obviously, or it's gonna have to start all over. Keeping the toes forward, you step 5 steps to the right, 5 steps to the left. And then you would pause and do that 2 more times. Obviously, as you get stronger, you can either increase the resistance of the band or you can take more steps, okay? All right, so now that's all cardio, all lower body. Now we're going to go with upper body. So, and then we'll do core. So for the upper body at the park, if you want to do an upper body workout at the park, you've got to find either a tree, a suitable tree, or you could work out right over here, and that's what we're going to do today. There's a lot of these nice smaller trees. I don't want to use this tree today because it's covered in lights, but there's some in other areas of the park that are smaller like that you can absolutely use for upper body. So for upper body, we are going to use the straight band. And this is where it's important to get attention that's appropriate for you. And many of us have been sitting at home at our computers, hunched over our computers most likely. So this next series is really good for posture. Oop, make sure it doesn't blow away. Okay, so again, you can use a small tree for this. You can use a tree just like that. But I'm going to use the pavilion since we're right here. And we're trying to not disturb people who are enjoying this beautiful day. So you'd want to put it even with about your navel, maybe a little bit higher. And again, the closer that I grip up here, the more difficult this is going to be. The further away I am down here, the easier it's going to be. So from here, I'm going to pull straight back. You can imagine, you should imagine you got a pencil between your shoulder blades, and you're going to squeeze that pencil each time you pull back. Now you want to keep your shoulders pressed down. You don't want your shoulders to come up around your ears. And again, you're going to work by doing 3 sets of 10. Resting in between just for a couple of seconds is okay. 30-second rest in between is okay. Yeah, low pull. Keep the elbows in nice and close. So that's a good posture exercise. Now the lat pull down, you can use, again, one of the trees in the park, or alternatively, you can put this up at the top like that. And this is a lat pull down. Again, I'm keeping my shoulders pressed down. I don't want my shoulders to go up to my ears each time. I want to keep pressed down like so. And again, I'm going to do 3 sets of 10, okay, with a little bit of rest in between. Now, another exercise that you can do, this one's a really good one for posture and for pulling the shoulders back, because a lot of times when we're on our laptops all day, we're front, so we want to really work to pull the shoulders back. So they're called face pulls, okay? So you want to have the band up by your face, okay? And again, you're going to adjust the tension by how close or far away from your anchor point your hands are. So this one is actually a little bit more difficult. There's smaller muscles that we're working. You want to get your hitchhiking thumbs up like this, and you want to pull back, and your thumb should win the race between your thumb and the elbow. So I want my thumbs to go back further than my elbow. Okay? And again, you're going to do 3 sets of 10 of those. Okay, another exercise that we can do with the band, with the straight band in particular, you're not going to be able to use the loop band at all for this, would be a shoulder press. And again, you're probably going to have to do one arm at a time, because I don't think they make a band light enough that you could do both arms. So again, you're going to adjust by standing on the band how much tension you want. And you're going to do, and you always want to hold the hand open like this and not shut like this. So open you would do 10. We'll call that 10. And then you would do 10 on the other side. Okay? Okay, one more exercise, upper body. And I'm going to tell you a trick that if you want to make that whole series go faster, we're going to do tricep kickback. So you start like this, and you're going to push straight back. Now what you don't want to do is you don't want to drop the arm in between. I see that a lot. You want to keep the from your shoulder to your elbow, you want to keep that anchored, and you want to kick straight back and in. If you feel like you need support, you could do this near a picnic table or near a bench and put your hand down as you're kicking back. And you want to make sure you get both sides, just like so. Okay, all right. So now if you wanted to make that whole thing go faster, what you could do is you could alternate an upper body and a lower body exercise instead of resting in between. So for example, I could do my low pull with the band, and then actually here's a perfect spot. I could do my squats. So I would do 10 low pulls, 10 squats, 10 low pulls, 10 squats until I've done 3 sets of each. And then I'd move on to the next 2 sets of exercise and so on and so forth. So I've done a full body workout. So that would save you time. And actually, it's really good to keep your heart rate up that way too, because you're not doing the rest. And you want to do the resistance training with the bands after you've done your cardio, or at least after you've warmed up for 5 to 7 minutes. You just don't want to jump right into the band. Okay, so now let's talk about an easy core exercise that you can do at the park without getting down on the ground. It's getting a little bit warmer, but before that, I don't think any of us wanted to get down on the ground. So we're going to do, actually, an easy plank. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do planks. So you can do planks on your hands, and that emphasizes the shoulders and back a little bit more. When you're on your elbows, you kind of emphasize the abs a little bit more. So you'd want to hold your planks. Well, it depends on your fitness level. You want to try to work up to holding your planks 3 times for 30 seconds, but you can absolutely start with 15-second holds and gradually work your way up. So the first one is just a regular plank like this. And you want to make sure that your bottom is down, so you don't want your bottom up too high, but you also don't want your bottom down too low. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the lower back, and you would just hold, bracing like this. Now, I'll tell you a little secret. The wider your feet, the easier it is. If you want to make it more difficult, your feet are together. Okay, so that's option 1. And make sure that your shoulders, elbows, and wrists are lined up. So you don't want to be like this, and you don't also want to be like this. You want to be right like this. Now, that emphasizes a little bit more of the shoulders, triceps, and back. If you really want to get to the core, line yourself up like this. Elbow right underneath the shoulder, and then you would hold for however many seconds that you want to. Really, you would concentrate on pulling in the belly button and looking straight ahead. An awful lot of people, when they're doing planks, I see them do this a lot, where they're back like this. So make sure you stay like this. Okay, now that is how you should start, and then you should move to the side planks. And again, if you want to emphasize the shoulders more, then you're going to be up on your hand. If you want to emphasize the abs more, you're going to be down on your forearm. So a side plank up would just look like this. Okay, you can put your hand up if you like. They do that a lot in yoga. Now, if you want to emphasize more of the abdominals, you're going to want to come down again with the shoulder right above the elbow and out like so. I find this stance a little bit easier when I'm up off the floor. And again, you could hold your hand up. You want to do both sides. If you poke right here during this exercise, you will see exactly what it does. And you want to make sure, again, that you do both on both sides so that you're even, obviously. Okay, so we've worked you out. The last thing that I want to show you is how to do some stretches, okay? Because stretching is the best part. A really important point about stretching is most of us do not hold our stretches long enough. We do this, then we do this, then we do this. You want to stretch. It takes 30 seconds for a stretch to actually do what it's supposed to tell the muscle to lengthen. Okay, so actually right here we've got a nice place to stretch. So you want to hold each stretch for 30 seconds. Use your phone, use a little timer to make sure you're getting 30-second hold in. And you will notice after a few days, actually, it takes almost less than a week for my clients in particular to see, oh, I can finally reach my toes. So when you start to stretch your hamstring, let's say, you may only be able to reach here. And then after a week of holding this position for 30 seconds, you'll be able to reach your toe. Now, one way you can make this a little bit easier, I have some clients that are so tight that they're literally like this. So what I tell them to do is just push from behind until they feel a stretch. You can also use a towel. I'm going to lose my paper here. You can also use a towel or a strap, if you're going to have it at the park anyway, to do this way. Okay? That's the best way to start stretching. I don't like to have people do a standing hamstring stretch at first because they can end up hurting themselves trying to balance and stretch at the same time. Now, when we did that glute medius exercise before, yours might be burning a bit, so a good easy stretch for that where you don't have to lay down on the ground, be just to sit like this. Make sure this foot's in. Make sure it's not way out here. This foot's in, the knee is down. You keep your back straight, chest up as you lean forward. So don't cave in on yourself or you'll lose the stretch. Make sure that you sit. Again, you would hold for 30 seconds before changing sides. Hold for 30 seconds. Glute medius stretch. Okay? Another good one to do is what I call the over-under. Be very careful with this one, especially the back one, because you'll find that on your dominant side, your arm doesn't reach quite as high. So over-under looks like this. Your one arm goes up, the other arm goes back. The goal is to eventually touch those fingers together. Most people cannot do that, so it's okay if you can't. As you'll see, on my dominant side, I'm right-handed. I have more space in between. That's perfectly normal. And you'd want to hold each of those for 30 seconds, again, to reach the maximum. That's when the muscle, like the brain tells the muscle, relax. So one final stretch for posture. This one you can do even if you haven't exercised. If you find yourself at the desk all day, you want to do the over-under stretch and this one. It's very good. So find you don't necessarily need a surface like this, but even a door frame. Put your hand, line up your shoulder, elbow, wrist. Start like this. Then turn just your feet away to open up to hold for 30 seconds. This is a really good stretch that most of us desperately need. Okay? And then you do the other side for 30 seconds. All right. So that was a lot of information. Hopefully you can use some of it to better your health. Again, if you have any questions about anything I've talked about today, please reach out to me either by messenger is the best way to get me at Holly McLaughlin Forrest. You can message me. You can also find me on Holly's Holistic Fitness page. And have a beautiful spring, guys. Once again, thank you to the Adams County Public Library System for presenting the video and for the Lions Club for sponsoring the video. Bye-bye.